All right, Lisa, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get started.
I am ready.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone to Appreciation Strategies to Boost Your Business and Lift Your Life. Our presenter today is Lisa Ryan. As a reminder, course materials are for personal use only. Please take a moment to familiar yourself with your content ownership statement that you'll see on your screen multiple times throughout this event. Lisa Ryan, CSP, helps organizations develop employee engagement strategies that keep their top talent from becoming someone else's. Lisa is a best-selling author of 10 books, and she spent 13 years in industrial distribution, including 7 years in the welding industry. And yes, she does weld. Throughout this session, please enter questions in the Q&A box instead of the chat box, and we'll address any questions at the end of this session. Thanks, Lisa. I'll now turn it over to you.
All righty. Well, I am so glad that you're here, and you're here at the end of the day for a little bit of appreciation strategies to boost your business and lift your life. Here is, first of all, we'll get the legal out of the way when it comes to the ownership of course material. I know you've been seeing that all day. And then you already heard all about me. And in our time together, these are going to be some of the learning objectives. But most of all, we're going to learn some ways to look for the good. And at the end of our time together, to walk out with some things that you can use both personally and professionally. So as we get started, I do want to find out where you're from. So go ahead and in the chat, I know in the Zoom chat, go ahead and put where you're from. I'll share a little bit about from my background, but I am here from Cleveland, Ohio. So we have Toronto in the house, we have Colorado Springs in the house, we have Jacksonville, Florida. So even though we are not getting on planes right now and being able to see each other in the hallways and have meals together, it's always nice to make those connections. As a matter of fact, this week was the first week that I've been on a plane for a business convention, live convention, in over a year and a week. So it was kind of nice to be back in the saddle again. So yeah, we have Indiana's in the house, Canada, Michigan, Seattle, Washington, Buffalo, New York. So really everybody tuning in. So welcome, and you're going to have plenty of opportunities to share in the chat. So good, y'all know where it's at. Because this has been a really weird year, to say the least. I mean, with all of this new language that we've put into the lexicon this year, I mean, we've been talking about things, the social distancing, the sheltering in place, the stay-at-home orders, and who, of course, could forget? You're on mute, Bob. Okay, so if you are like me and you never have to hear those words again, you're on mute. Will that not make your life just a little bit happier just to begin that? And the thing is, it's not only for people who aren't on Zoom all the time. I'm on Zoom all the time and I still hear, Lisa, you're on Zoom, on mute. So what has led to this is lots of different emotions have come through this really tough year. So again, we're going to do a little poll chat, and you're going to give yourself a rating on a scale of 1 to 6 to find out where you are right now in these emotions that have gone with this really tough year. So you're at a number 1 if you are angry, or maybe angry again, because you know what, a year ago today is when Ohio totally shut down. But you know, we thought that would be done by now, and not being able to go to restaurants and not being able to know if your kids are in school or out of school, or all the things that we're doing, and it's not fair, and maybe you're either angry or back to angry. At number 2, you're fearful. A year ago, we were talking about the fact that, well, yeah, I don't know anybody that has this virus. I mean, it can't be that big of a deal. And a year later, not only are we seeing about a third of Americans have lost somebody to COVID, but chances are that it's touched us, it's touched our family, and there's that fear going forward with that. You're at a 3 if you're neutral. You're like, you know, Lisa, I am a total introvert. So if I never have to hug a stranger again, my life will be totally complete. I'm loving social distancing because that's what I do. At number 4, you're hopeful because we're starting to see vaccines. I mean, 10 days from now, I'll be getting mine. But it's we've seen medicine itself change because we've just been so fast with this vaccine coming out, and we're seeing a little bit of normalcy. Like I said, this week I got to get on a plane, which means that I checked in for a flight and I got a boarding pass, and I didn't even have to complain about travel, which was awesome. So we're starting to be hopeful. At 5, you're happy because Lisa, this is awesome. I don't have to get on planes and I don't have to sleep in hotels. I don't even have to get dressed from the waist down if I don't want to. I've completely changed my business and this has been awesome. And then at number 6, well, you're just happy there's beer or wine. I couldn't find an emoji with a wine glass. So go ahead and in the chat, 1 through 6, where are you right now? When I first started doing this at the beginning, there were lots of 1s and 2s because people were angry, they were frustrated. Then we got, I see my 6 person there. Thanks, Chuck. we started getting 5 or 6 months into it. We started seeing more 3s and 4s. Now, some people are going back to 1s and 2s again, but we see, okay, so, we're seeing a lot of 4s. There's still a little bit of fear. I see all my 6s, those are my people here, but 4 seems to be the predominant because, and there's lots of 4s coming through on WUVA. The reason I do this is to show you that no matter what experience you are having with COVID, other people are having different experiences, and we don't know what is going on with others. So just to be able to err on the side of positivity, to be able to look for the good, to look for the lessons, to make those connections with people, and to realize that no matter where you are in the process, and chances are that can change from day to day, other people may be experiencing it differently from you. And like I said, we saw that right in the chat there. And what we're really missing is that basic human connection. We want to be in a room together and we want to shake hands and not be afraid, or, fist bump or whatever we're going to resort to once that goes back. But we really want, I'll tell you, when I did this program from the stage this week, I had people raise their hand to see who else, it was their first trip in over a year. And it was more than 50% of the room. But there was this energy there because we've been missing that. And it's not only on the business front, but from a personal standpoint. My dad's been in an assisted living since 2018. He had a stroke in 2011. He was able to live on his own. And then in 2018, we moved him to a facility where he's thriving and he loves it. Well, my dad doesn't normally wear a clown wig like that, but that was Halloween of 2019. And they had all these kids coming through and going from door to door with the residents, and it was so magnificent. And then exactly 1 year ago today was when everything shut down. I had gone to pick up my dad's laundry in the morning, and then by the afternoon they said, well, you're just going to have to drop off his laundry at the door because you're not allowed to come in anymore. Well, my dad was turning 79 in June. And my dad's a hugger. And I said, listen, there is no way that my dad's going to turn 79 without me hugging him. We have to figure out how to make this work. So working with the nurse manager and the people there outside on June 25th, on his birthday, wearing a hazmat suit, an N95 mask, and gloves, I was able to see my dad. So when he was first coming in that picture to the left, he had his little walker and he had his mask on. And he was looking me up and down like, what is going on with you, girlfriend? And I said, guess what we get to do today? He said, what? I said, we get to hug. I will tell you what, he threw that walker to the side and came up and we had the best hug ever. Now, I have not asked them to do that again. So it's been, I don't know, 8 months or so since that hug. And I know that as things start to open up and we start to get hopeful again, hopefully within the next couple weeks after I get my vaccine, that I'll be able to hug him once again. But that's what we're missing. And that's why this program is so important, because no matter what is going on, to make sure that you have the strategies to look for and find the good. Because when it comes to gratitude, in times like this, it's not just a good idea. It really is essential to life. So you may be thinking, okay, well, who is this Lisa Ryan woman and why does she go around the country? Well, virtually now anyway, talking about gratitude, gratitude strategies, employee engagement and retention. I was actually born and raised in Cleveland. I started my career as an executive recruiter. I'm actually one of the few people on the planet who can say they sold their mother. Mom hated that job. But I said, Mother, you have got to stay there at least 90 days because I have a guarantee and I can't afford to give back the commission I made on you. Thankfully, she was there for 2.5 years. We're still good. From there is when I went into industrial distribution, where I sold electrical cord and cable into the maintenance environment, and then 7 years in the welding industry. And from there, I went into healthcare. But what really started this whole thing on gratitude was a fire walk in 2009. So if you are in here and you have ever walked on fire, not accidentally like you knocked over the barbecue grill or something, but go ahead and in the chat put firewalker or yes, I did or something like that. Because every once in a while, there will be some person that actually says yes. Most people say, no, that is crazy talk. That is not happening. So to answer your two questions, no, I did not get burned. And no, I have no idea why I didn't get burned. This wasn't my first fire walk. My first one was in 1989 when I was 6, just in case you're doing the math. The first one was powerful because really, when you walk on fire, I can do anything. But the second one, we have a fire walker in the house, woo! But the second one was life-changing. Because as my friends and I are driving home from Chicago, we were jacked up. You might actually say we were fired up. We also knew that unless we took action, everything that we had learned would go right out the window and we'd go right back to where we were before. And we didn't want that to happen again. So we opened up a Facebook thread and every day we wrote down things we learned, people we met, experiences that we had. And one of my friends said, why don't we write down 3 things that we're grateful for? Okay, did it every day, held each other accountable. And it was that practice that changed everything. I was in medical sales at the time and customers I hadn't talked to for months were calling me, hey, can you come in and sell me some stuff? I'll be right there. There were 2 large facilities that I'd been calling on for almost 5 years that seemed to close effortlessly. I noticed the difference from my husband, who was becoming more verbally appreciative. And believe me, it wasn't because I was keeping the kitchen any cleaner. All of these things were changing, but the only thing I had changed was that practice of gratitude. So that's where the research began. And I've read thousands of white papers and books and attended programs to see, is gratitude more than this feel-good emotion that we ascribe to it? And I found out that there was. One of the first studies that I read was by Dr. Robert Emmons. He's a PhD professor at the University of California at Davis. He took a random group of students, divided them into 3. The first group, he had them write down the things they were grateful for. The second group, all the troubles, hassles, things that bugged them. Third group simply recorded the day's events. They were the control group. Well, after 10 weeks, the gratitude group was 25% happier. Now you might be saying, Lisa, how do you actually know they were 25% happier? Well, because when Dr. Emmons presented his findings, he did so in a pie chart. And as you know, pie makes everyone happy. As a matter of fact, yesterday was Pi Day 314, just in case you forgot to celebrate. No, actually for about 10 weeks before the study, he had them write down, headaches, backaches, relationships, stress levels, because he wanted to separate the chronically happy people from, let's just call them the chronically crappy people. And they saw that 25% increase. The gratitude group exercised on average an hour and a half more per week. They complained less often. Wouldn't that be nice? They had fewer physical ailments. And we're going to cover that today. But can you think of a better time to focus on our immune system, on our health? And by choosing positive emotions, we can actually do that. People with a regular practice of gratitude have fewer, if they are immunocompromised, if they have neuromuscular diseases, they actually fare better. They were more happy, joyful, enthusiastic. And then Dr. Emmons interviewed people associated with the gratitude group to see if they noticed any difference, and they did. They found that they were more emotionally available. They were nicer to be around. So I did my own research. I posted a question on LinkedIn. And the question was, how do you incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business? Okay, simple question. How do you incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business? Well, I'm thinking that this is a standard vanilla answer question. I was going to get standard answers, and I got lots of them. But it was the first one that kind of threw me for a loop because it was written in all caps. So as I'm reading this, my mind is processing going, you don't need to incorporate gratitude and appreciation into your business because people are just going to take advantage of you anyway. I'm like, holy cow, what do you do with that? I called my best friend. She said, I don't know. It's not like you can do anger management counseling online. So I emailed her back. I said, I'm really sorry that you feel that way. She said, that's okay, big girl, now moving on. So I'm a glutton for punishment. And I wanted to find out the rest of the story. So I emailed her one more time. And I said, this might sound rather silly, but if you would take my 30-day gratitude challenge and for the next 30 days, simply write down 3 to 5 things for which you're grateful. And at the end of the month, let me know how it goes. She emailed me back, lowercase. Thank you so much for being so positive. I'll do that right away. I'm like, who are you? And what did you do with that grouchy woman? So we stayed in contact. A month goes by. I said, so how's things going? She said, it's weird. She said, I haven't been feeling that much different. But recently when I went on vacation and I was around some friends and family who hadn't seen me for a while, they noticed the difference. It makes no difference if you believe any of this. If you'll walk out of here with one idea that you'll start to use consistently, I promise you that even if you don't immediately see the difference, other people will. So it is showtime. I'm an acronym girl. So when it comes to this, we're going to talk about gratitude from the aspect of the self, the health benefits, relationship with others, and then how do we take that into the workplace? So the first one is the self, and this is where it's got to start. Gratitude is not something that's done for you. It's not done to you. It starts with you and those practices of looking for the good. So I have 3 of them. So if you're a note taker, make sure that you get out those pens and paper and do that. Because the first one is the gratitude journal. Now, before you're saying, Lisa, I don't have time to add one more thing to my plate, this takes less than 2 minutes a day. It's literally writing down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for first thing in the morning. I actually keep my gratitude journal under my bed. It's the first thing that I do before I put my feet on the floor and take that first walk down the hallway. And you write down 5 sentences I am grateful for, and add some detail. Because if every day I wrote down, I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my cats, I'm grateful for my house, so it gets really boring really quickly. So I can write, I am so grateful that Scott cooked a great dinner last night. I'm so grateful that the technology gods are cooperating. I'm so grateful for binge watching The Crown with the greatest cat in the world, Tinkerbell, sitting on my lap. So it gives you the opportunity to really feel that gratitude. And the nice thing is with the morning journal is that you can be grateful in advance. So for example, this morning I wrote down, I'm so grateful that I rocked the program for UID. So because you set those positive expectations. Think about what happens when you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, today is going to be terrible. How's your day going to be? So we set those positive expectations with the morning gratitude journal. The other one is the evening journal. I call the wins journal. So before you turn out the light at night, to just take that notebook and write down 3 to 5 good things that happened during the day. Now, after a particularly horrific day, that's a more difficult one to do, but it also reminds you that good things did happen. And if you wake up some days, and you're like, Lisa, I got nothing. I don't even know what to be grateful for. That's when you can look back on the pages and remind yourself, which is one of the nice reasons to write it down, because you think about it, you have the pen in your hand, you're seeing the words on paper, you're hearing the words, and it makes it easier for you to get to that place of gratitude. The third practice, that little block of ABCs you have there, this is a drug-free way to fall asleep. Because I don't know if maybe you're like me, that you have those little voices that are trying to keep you awake at night. They're reminding you of all the things you didn't get done during the day, and they're reminding you of all the things you have to get done tomorrow. They're really annoying, aren't they? So with the ABCs of gratitude, you pick a random letter in the alphabet. So maybe tonight I'll start with U. I'm so grateful for all the people that tuned in for my program at UID. Okay, V. I'm grateful for that the Cleveland Browns had a almost victorious season. W. I'm grateful for white chocolate. I don't know, I'm just making stuff up as I go along. Now, when you get to the end of the alphabet like that, and you get to the letter X, you do not have to be grateful for your xylophone. Number one, because if you have kids or grandkids with a Fisher-Price xylophone, chances are good you're not grateful for it. So you can be grateful for the exciting time you had, the exhilarating time you had, whatever it is, it's your game, make it up. I had one person in one of my programs share that she picks one letter in the alphabet and thinks of all the things that she can be grateful for with that one letter. So you have 3 practices: morning journal, evening journal, and ABCs of gratitude. And even with the ABCs of gratitude, there are going to be some nights where you will go through the alphabet twice. But most times it's 5 or 6 letters, which is why I no longer begin with A, because I wasn't making it through F or G. So the 30-day gratitude challenge is just that. And it gives you a start. I've done official 30-day gratitude challenges. And then at the end, I've heard from people, I am so sorry that the gratitude challenge ended. I really liked keeping my gratitudes. I'm like, part of my evil plan is that you continue doing it. The 30 days just kind of gets you into that mode. So we're going to do a little practice right now, and go ahead and in the chat, share one thing that you are grateful for. And the cool thing is that if you see somebody else and they're writing down something that you're grateful for, feel free to case it, which basically means copy and steal everything. But this gets you into the practice, because it's as easy as that. Maybe it's the realization of the time that you're spending with your family. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's the fact that you're able to get a vaccine. Maybe it's the nicer weather so you can run outside. I would tell you what, in Cleveland in the last couple of weeks, we have had so much sunshine. I don't even feel like I live in Cleveland. And that's the thing. A lot of times people will think about in a gratitude journal that it has to be this big thing. Woo, I won the lottery. Woo, I just met the love of my life. It can be, I'm grateful that the sun's out. I'm grateful for electricity, for a nice warm bed, for hot showers. Because when we can focus and be grateful for these little things in our life that we take for granted, then that's when we get into practice. So when bad stuff happens, we rewire our brain to say, okay, after I get through the rawness of this emotion, what is something that I can be grateful for? And of course, Tim, grandkids always end up on the list too. And these are just this little practice, how easy it is to do, a fun job. It is healthy family, the vaccine, job security. So we're looking at all of these things. Snowfall, I will tell you, I'm looking at my friends that are going through lots of snow in Denver right now. So it's pretty from the inside. So that is the self. So let's take a look at the physical benefits. I love this quote because it is just so darn true. And especially now we're seeing, our priorities have changed that last year because we were putting so much of our health to get wealth, and now we're kind of taking that step back. So the Institute of Heart Math, which is in California, explores our physical emotions on our emotions on our physical health. And there's two really great studies that I want to share with you. The first one, they compared frustration and appreciation and its impact on the heart. So what they did, they took a random group of people, hooked them up to monitors, put them through a period of frustration, and then looked at the way their heart beat. If you imagine a lie detector, it's kind of all over the place. That's how your heart is beating when you're frustrated. Same group of people, put them through a period of appreciation and gratitude, and this is what their heartbeat looked like. Nice, smooth. So we can impact ourselves physically, but here's one that's going to really surprise you. They took a look at anger and compassion and its impact on the immune system. This is a writer downer. Did you know that for every 5 minutes you spend in anger, you actually reduce the effectiveness of your immune system for 6 hours? Those same 5 minutes spent in compassion actually elevate the performance of your immune system for those same 6 hours. And stress is another thing. When you look at something, and we all have a tool to get out of the stress response. And it's something that you are doing 24/7. And if you're not doing it, you are in deep, deep doo-doo. So go ahead and put that in the chat. What is it that you have that you're doing all day long that you can use as an effective tool to get out of the stress response? I know you're probably all typing it there. So for those of you in the process of typing, it's the breath. That is it. Because when you think about it, when you're stressed, you get smaller. You're not allowing that oxygen to fill up your lungs, accessing those endorphins, your oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. So a couple breathing practices I like. This one I just call 4-7-8 because that's what it looks like. You're breathing in for 4. Hold for 7, release for 8. Doing that 5 times will help you physically get out of the stress response. So just thinking of little things that you can do, choosing those positive emotions, realizing that the impact of your heart, your immune system, your stress level, your sleep, all of that is impacted, and particularly during these really difficult times that we've been going through for the past year, that it's essential that we look for ways to turn it around. When it comes to our relationship with others, you've all heard the stories or the saying, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. The Lisa Ryan addendum to that, though, is, but if you can say something nice, do. Because too often we assume that people know how we feel about them. So even going through this, and assume positive intent. You saw at the beginning with the poll there, the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s. People are across the board when it comes to how they're dealing with this right now. So if we can assume that people are doing the very best that they can, and we cut them some slack and cut ourselves some slack, it will really help with our relationships. And we can do that in a lot of ways. The Post-it notes, goodness knows you have Post-it notes all over the place, giving people tangible evidence of a job well done. Thinking about somebody that needs to hear from you and sending them a quick text. Hey, I'm thinking about you. How you doing? Sending that thank you note or that letter of appreciation. Okay, in the world according to Lisa Ryan, here's the difference. A thank you note, thank you for something. Thank you for the gift, thank you for your time. A letter of appreciation, thank you because these are the reasons that I appreciate you. And probably the best book to figure that out as far as how people are wired for gratitude is The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. If you've read The 5 Love Languages, go ahead and put "I did" in the chat. The Cliff Notes version is that we get our love tanks filled in one of 5 ways: words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, quality time, and gifts. Dr. Paul White also wrote a book called The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. Exact 5 things. Physical touch, not the same in the workplace. Okay. Physical touch is, how do you like, does that person like to be connected with? Voicemail, email, in-person, phone. So yeah, so we have a couple people that have read the book, and it's just a great way to not only determine your own love language, but to help you determine others. Because at the beginning of a relationship, we're all over it. We're words of affirmation and physical touch and quality time and acts of service and gifts. But then as we get into that relationship, we go to where we like gratitude, and we may be missing that other person. One of the ways in Post-it notes, great way to use it with your family, is a couple of years ago, I snuck a note into my husband's lunch, and it was kind of like, "To the world's most wonderful husband from the world's most fabulous wife," something like that. Scott put it on his wall in his cubicle, took a picture of it, and texted it to me. And years later, he's got a drawer full of notes from me. We're celebrating 25 years of marriage next month. And part of the reason why there's still 25 happy years is because of these little things of gratitude, of not taking each other for granted. One of the other biggest gifts of COVID, a lot of times we look at this stuff from a work standpoint, and being on Zoom, goodness knows we're on Zoom enough, aren't we? But last April, I told my mother, "Hey, we should get on a Zoom. We should do a family Zoom." And my mother said, "I'm not using any of that technology stuff. I don't understand it." I'm like, "Mother, we're getting on family Zoom." I did not let her off the hook and do FaceTime like I had been. So the first time it was me, my mom, and my stepsister. We jumped on Zoom. And then the next week, 2 of my sisters joined, and then my brother joined. And we turned it into twice a week Zoom. Oh, that didn't quite come out on the slide. Twice a week Zoom, and now on Saturdays, it's international family Zoom. So there's people on that call from Ohio, Georgia, Massachusetts, California, Florida, England, Barbados, Trinidad, and Canada. I have gotten closer to my family in the last year than I've ever been before. And it's because this coronavirus is a gift. When we look for the gifts and we look for those connections, and I think that those twice a week calls have helped all the family members. So just think about, make yourself a goal of one person that you can connect with today, and make that a commitment. One of my clients, actually, what she does is she goes to the post office every month and gets 1 sheet of stamps. And her goal is to use those stamps sending out thank you notes. So these are all the things that you can do, but just pick one person. Another challenge for you. And I do have a gift for you. This is my first book, The Upside of Downtimes, Discovering the Power of Gratitude. So what you'll do is you will text the word engage to 66866. So without the quotes on it, you will get a text back from me, which is amazing since I'm doing this program. And it says to put in your first name and your email address. The reason why I do that is if your email address is mike.smith@abc.com, it's easy for me to say, "Hey, Mike." If your email address is hotbikerchick@yahoo, I don't really want to go there. So this is not a sales list. You are getting the upside of downtimes, where you'll see it's actually set up exactly like this talk today, with self-help, others, and wealth, with activities and things that you can share. And yes, you can share the link with whoever you want. All right, so let's move on to the workplace. And how do we focus on gratitude when it comes to either our wealth, being appreciative for what we have, no matter what it is, and how do we bring it to the workplace? Because that's the exact correct order. You start doing gratitude for yourself, where you start to feel better, where your relationships get stronger. And now we can bring that better, kinder, stronger person into the workplace. And how do we do that? Well, you want to be transparent. This is not the time to be all that in a bag of chips when it comes with the people you work with, the people who report to you, any of that, because we're all going through to this together. Now, this isn't the opportunity to whine and complain and moan about everything, but to let people know and to share those little life hacks. How did you get through with your kids going to school and being afraid for your parents and goodness knows, trying to minimize the interruption from your cats and dogs while doing Zoom meetings. Most of the time, if Tinkerbell is in the room, well, she just ends up on the program somehow because she's the greatest cat ever. But we still, this whole virus has made us a lot more human. So we take advantage of that and we create those human connections. Expressing empathy, of just knowing that you don't know what that other person is going through. You don't know that they're living alone and maybe they're lonely, but they don't want to show that. We reach out to people. We try to figure out what we can do to help them. We're tactical. There are lots of things. I will tell you, you probably know this, but this past year has sped up technology faster than anything that we could have done before, right? I mean, when we look at who would have thought a year, or I should say 2 years ago, that we would have whole conferences, whole conventions done virtually. I've been on Zoom a ton. I've been an avatar. I've been an MC. I mean, it's just, it's mind-boggling to see because we all know that conventions are in person. And looking at new ways of doing business. About last February, I was hired by a local church to work with their minister on some presentation skills. So I was supposed to go out, watch him preach, give him some tips and stuff to be more dynamic. And then COVID hit, whack, like contract is signed and whack, it's done. So not only were we able to do our coaching online, but he started doing their services on Facebook Live. And instead of having 50 people in the pews, they had like 350 people tuning in from all over the country. So if I would have told this minister in February, I know what you should do. You should start having your services on Facebook Live because then you'll attract people from all over the country and you'll make it easier for your congregants that can't come to service. He would have said, Lisa, that's crazy talk. We have an older congregation. They're not on Facebook. They're not online. They'd never do it. And yet they are. So what are you doing now that you weren't doing a year ago that you can use going forward? So I'm going to continue to talk, but if there's something cool that you've had that same kind of experience that you were saying, a year ago, I didn't even think about this, go ahead and put that in the chat, because one of the magical things that we're kind of missing this year is the fact that we're not having those hallway conversations, but we can look at the chat that way, because that one thing that you're doing or that you've learned that you think, well, it's common sense, everybody does it that way. That may be the one idea that somebody else that is at this program today walks away and it completely changes their life and changes their business. So again, we just look for ways to reach out and connect with people. And acknowledging excellence. Again, people are doing the very best that they can with what they have. And your workload, it may not be the same, or I should say the efforts of your workload, the work that you're expecting to get done may be lower than what you saw in the past. But if we take into consideration that what was our house is now a playground and a school and a hospital and a production studio, and we're trying to, I've been working out of my house since 1997, so I'm used to it. The nice thing about working from home is that it's always there. But the bad part about working from home is that it's always there. So we need to have these boundaries that we have, and just looking for ways to acknowledge people, not only telling them, picking up the phone, saying thank you, sending a card. But if you're sending an email to somebody, a congratulatory email, to copy your upper leadership on it, to help spread the word, to acknowledge people for the good work that they're doing. So just think about some of the different ways that you're communicating with your team. And you can go ahead and put that in the chat. Are you using different apps like Slack or GroupMe? Is it primarily in person, email? And I would also challenge you, if your main mode of communication is email, because I don't know about you, but my email has just exploded, like 4 times what I was getting, hundreds of emails a day. So when we look at different ways of communicating, whether it be sending snail mail or picking up the phone or doing something that's just a little bit different to make that connection, that's what we can do. So choose one thing, and you can either write this down for yourself or go ahead and share it in the chat. One thing that you're going to do as a result of our time together. Perhaps you're looking at it from the aspect of the self. I'm going to start a gratitude journal. I'm going to try out the ABCs of gratitude. I'm going to keep a wins journal before I go to sleep at night. Maybe it's focusing on choosing positive emotions, reminding yourself that when you choose compassion over anger, or you choose appreciation over frustration, you help yourself physically. In your relationship with others, maybe you're thinking, you know what, I'm going to reach out to my mom. I'm going to reach out to my cousin. I'm going to send a text. I'm going to pick up the phone, ask somebody to jump on a Zoom call, meet for a virtual coffee. And then when it comes to the workplace, what can you do one thank you at a time to help make your workplace a little bit brighter? So if you didn't get it the first time, here is the join by text. Again, you're going to text the word engage to 66866. And I am going to open it up for questions before I end with my final story. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to put it in that. And so getting away from emails, having the staff jot down positive things, that's actually a great way to start your meetings. Because face it, nobody likes meetings. Unless there's food, nobody really likes meetings. So if instead of just diving into the point of the meeting, why not go around and share positive things? It can be work related, it can be personal related, because that way we're helping to make these connections. I was working with one client and they actually put a ledger by the time clock that their employees would come in, they would punch in, and then they would write down something that they were grateful for. I had another employee, another client, that they had a whiteboard that people would write their gratitudes on. And then when the whiteboard got filled up, they would take a picture of that, erase it, start over again. You can do it with Post-it notes. You can have thank you notes. So all of these little things that you can do. Are we seeing any questions at all, Maria?
Yeah, we'll give everyone a few minutes to get their questions in. One to start you off with here. During busy or stressful days, how do you make sure to find the time or motivate yourself to reflect on gratitude?
Well, it's a tough thing to do, because again, we have so much to do and so much to get done. And because we're spending so much time on Zoom, we're not moving as much as maybe we would like to. And so it's really that conscious effort. Some of the ways that you can do it is to pick something that's going to be, like when I'm trying to think of the word for, I'm blanking on the word, but when you do something like when you're brushing your teeth, oh, when I'm brushing my teeth, this is when I take the time to think about gratitude. David Stindl-Ross, who's a monk who has a beautiful YouTube video on gratitude. One of his practices is every time he's in touch with water. So whether he's washing his hands, taking a shower, standing in the rain, Water is his symbol to this is the time to think about gratitude. You may want to put things, little timers on your phone throughout the day. I know there's gratitude apps out there that will show up at certain times during the day and miscellaneous times that will say, what's something you're grateful for? So don't get all caught up in the fact that this has to take hours and hours to write down. Give yourself the gift of 30 seconds, of a minute, of just taking those little breathers during the day to focus on one thing that's good and to focus on one thing about that person that's good.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of people commenting that they like the morning gratitude journal and that it was a very positive way to start the day. We'll let everyone get a few more questions in. One more that I've got. Someone said you made a note on how this time during COVID has kind of allowed for more empathy and keeping the humanness about people. How do you see that moving forward after COVID? Do you think people will continue to do that in a post-COVID environment?
I hope so. And I think that part of it is going to be a conscious effort to do so as we look back on the magical relationships, like that Zoom call that I do with my family. That's not stopping after Zoom, after COVID. It's these, I believe we're going to take fewer things for granted, going out to restaurants, really focusing on those things that we missed. And when we start to get, a year or two later, when we're just going out all the time and doing things that we want to do, of just going back and reminding yourselves. Another thing, and this just popped into my mind, when you post pictures on Facebook, like today, of course, everything came from Facebook that happened a year ago. So it just gives you these little opportunities to remind yourself of, and just to keep that thought, but it's not going to happen naturally. It's something that we do. So I will put my final thoughts up here, and also as those comments or questions are coming in, just want to share how this all worked. So it was October 12th, 2010. I was in medical sales and I was having the best year of my career. I was well on the way to winning the sales trip for the first time. And I was invited to an organizational announcement. Now, I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I was on top of the world, right? I was winning the sales trip. I was having my best year ever. And I had been doing this gratitude for a year, and it was fantastic. Until the Columbus rep called me and she said, hey, conference call's been switched to 11:30. I said, really? I didn't get that email. She said, you weren't on the list. So 11 o'clock, I called in, and the call kind of went like this. Yeah, we're going through severe financial problems right now. Your position's been eliminated, effective immediately. Please stay off the phone so our outplacement firm can call you, and we're not going to answer any questions. You'll have to wait till you get your package from FedEx, and then HR will call you. Goodbye. Click. When something's happening and it's so bad that time slows down? I'm sitting in my office and I'm shaking and I'm crying and I'm pinching myself. This can't be happening. And then I had to call my husband and let him know that my very lucrative medical sales job went away. His first response, what did you do? So I'm thinking, I started this gratitude practice a year ago. Let's see what happens. So I sat down, I did some breathing activities, and I said, what can I find to be grateful for? And my goal list from 1989 popped into my head. There were about 80 items on it. First one, buy a house, check, I had done that. The second one, become a professional speaker. And the third one was to write a book. And at that moment, this physical weight lifted off my shoulders, knowing that goals that had been on my list for more than 20 years could come to fruition. And they have. I don't know where you're at right now. But what I can tell you is if you walk out of here with just one thing, that you implement consistently. And if you get out of the habit, forgive yourself and move on. But I promise you that when you look for the good, you can always find it. Here are my final thoughts, that gratitude does start with you. It's going to help you mentally, physically, spiritually. It'll help your relationships, and it will help you to create a culture that rocks. I'm Lisa Ryan, and I appreciate you. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Lisa. We really appreciate your great presentation today and all of your words of encouragement. There aren't any other questions coming in, but I do see you have your email up on the screen in case anyone has any thoughts after this session and wants to reach out to you. So that's great. Yep, great, there it is. And thank you again. We'll give everyone a minute to jot that down if they need it. And then other than that, that includes our final session for today. And we look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow for round 2 of the 2021 virtual UID conference. Thanks again. I really appreciate your time, Lisa.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.